Let's talk about WordPress blocks. This video is for site owners with little coding experience and developers who want to go beyond the core of WordPress blocks by creating custom ones. By the end of this video, you'll have an understanding of what a block is, why it's central to WordPress, and hopefully see 5 real-world block examples useful for almost any WordPress project. The goal is to give you a solid foundation to spot what exists in core and when it's worth creating your own custom blocks. So what exactly is a block? Now, some of you already know what that is, but it's worth covering the basics so that we're all on the same page. So a block is a piece of content you can insert and position anywhere in a post or a page. Think of it as a building block for layouts. In its simplest form, a block is a single HTML element like a paragraph, heading, image, or a button. And the other extreme, it can combine multiple elements to form a complex component. A common example might be a testimonial block, combined with images, name, quote, and possibly a star rating. Another example is a card component, combining an image, text, and a call to action button. Now, broken down, each piece is just standard HTML, but put together it creates a recognizable, reusable unit. Now, blocks in WordPress map to HTML with their own attributes, stored as structured data in the database. On the front end, those attributes are pulled out and define how the block is displayed, its alignment, its style, color, etc. Now, blocks can be static with plain markup, dynamic with PHP rendering, or interactive with JavaScript. Now, an accordion is a great example of an interactive block. The user clicks something to reveal more content. Now, blocks like this go beyond static layouts and add interactivity right in the editor. Now, the block editor is a visual tool for assembling blocks into complex page designs, much like building with Lego. It lets you create flexible, intuitive layouts without the old reliance on shortcode or custom-coded templates. While shortcodes still work for legacy reasons, block-based editing removes much of that complexity, making designs more accessible for both developers and non-coders. Now, WordPress ships with a set of core blocks: paragraph blocks, heading blocks, image blocks, buttons, lists, and much, much more. Now, with these blocks, you can build pretty much any typical site. Now, I prefer to use core blocks because they're officially maintained by WordPress. They have accessibility built into them, they're theme friendly, and with every update you get the security and performance increase. Even when WordPress evolves, core blocks remain backward compatible, giving you a level of reliability that's hard to beat and incredibly valuable. That said, sometimes core blocks just aren't enough, and that's where custom block development comes into play. For example, you could build your business opening hours in a table, but it starts to get clunky and confusing. A dedicated block is cleaner, easier to use, and clearly communicates its purpose to whoever is editing the site. And this is where custom blocks can really improve the user experience by simplifying the editor interface and giving site owners the tools that make sense for their particular needs. Core blocks are usually the best choice, but when you need something more tailored and reusable, custom blocks are essential. Now, this is the challenge when it comes to development because it's never been simple to develop a block. They're built with React through WordPress's APIs, plus build tools, configurations, and dependencies. Even an experienced developer finds it intimidating and daunting to deal with. And for non-coders, often they avoid it entirely, falling back to shortcode, page builders, and custom PHP templates instead. But things are changing. AI and new tools are making custom block development far more approachable. And one of the most exciting and talked about in the community at the moment is Telex, built by Automattic, which was dropped at WordCamp US recently. It streamlines block creation by turning a prompt into a ready-to-install plugin or a playground preview. In short, it lowers the barrier for both developers and site owners. I might be late to the table on this one, but it's too exciting to not cover. So if you're like me, curious about how blocks work, what they are, and how to use them, and go beyond the basics, then stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll have an understanding of the difference between core blocks and custom blocks, and walk away with 5 practical examples you can use in almost any project. Now, before we move on, if you're finding this helpful, please do hit the like button, as it really helps YouTube share this content with more people that might find this video beneficial. And if you're new here, then please do consider subscribing. I post regular videos about WordPress, from tutorials to behind the scenes workflows, And my goal is to make things clearer and easier for anyone building with WordPress. Now, if that sounds like the kind of content that you'd be into, then subscribing is the best way to stay in the loop. But now let's dive in. Now, Telex itself is the AI tool from Automattic. Now, I'll leave a link in the description below, but it's basically telex.automattic.ai. Then you will need to log in. So you log in with your WordPress.com account. I'll go ahead and do that. Now, I'm going to use some prerequisite AI tools to prepare the groundwork for my prompt. Now, if you haven't used an AI before, the secret sauce is in the prompt itself. So why not use AI to polish that prompt for you? Now, you can use whatever AI assistant you're most comfortable with, ChatGPT, Claude, or anything else that you prefer. Personally, I'm going to lean into ChatGPT, but the principle remains the same no matter what you choose. So, what blocks are we actually going to build? Well, I think we're going to start with the testimonial block, which I'd argue is probably on 99.9% of websites. So I have a prompt off screen here, which I'm just going to copy in and I'll read it back to you. So in ChatGPT, paste my prompt. Now, remember, I'm in ChatGPT and I'm asking it to give me a well-structured prompt. So I'm going to ask it to, or this is what I'm going to ask. I want a well-structured prompt for Telex AI to generate a custom WordPress testimonial block. The block should include attributes for alignment, background color, text color, font size, and font styling options. Input fields must capture the testimonial's author's name, the testimonial text itself, and a 5-star rating system. There should also be an optional upload and an accompanying image, such as a profile photo. The block must use standard theme.json settings for typography, spacing, and colors to ensure consistency with the active theme. Finally, all code should comply fully with WordPress coding standards and best practices for block development. Now, that last bit there probably isn't needed because it's an Automattic tool and that will be baked in, but I'm just going to include it anyway. So I'm going to submit that and then see what ChatGPT fires back to me. Right, so that's finished. Now that is probably more comprehensive than I would imagine, but we're going to give it a go. I'm working blindly here, so let's give it a go. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this out all the way down to the bit that says deliverable format. I don't want that bit. I'm not really bothered about that. I just want to see what Telex is going to punch out for me. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go over to Telex, just to prove my login, and that should get rid of the garish accessibility contrast color issue. Now, in here, I'm just going to paste that into that box. Let's see what happens. I'm going to go build. And this should fire up a playground instance and start building my block. So I'll speed the video up at this point. Okay, so that looks like it's finished. And so Playground is fired up and my testimonial block's in place, I believe. So if I check the list, yeah, there's my testimonial. And this allows me to add some text and an author name. Okay, so I'm going to add in Elliot Richmond. It doesn't allow me to add a space, which is a bit odd. Okay, it does. I lied. This is awesome. 5 stars, and I can set the rating, which is pretty cool. Okay, nice. And then I can upload a profile image. So I'm just going to go and grab something off my desktop. That'll do. And that's me, a weird profile of me, and we'll set that. Okay, and then if I want to add another one, okay, so this doesn't give me that option. So rather than be a repeatable field, which is fine, I didn't ask it to do that, I guess what I would do is just to add another, either duplicate that block and then I can add another testimonial, which is pretty cool. So that is neat. Now we can check this out on the front end. First of all, save the page, then jump over to the front end and see how this looks. And it looks as you would expect. Now that's pretty cool. So I'm going to download that now so that I've got it as a plugin. I'm going to allow that. So that's downloaded. So let's try another one. So let's go back to Telex. Now I've got another prompt off screen here, and this is going to be block for business opening times. So again, I'm going to go back to ChatGPT, and this time I'm going to say, I don't really want it to be as elaborate as the last prompt. So I'm just going to paste this in and I'll read it back to you. So I want a well-structured prompt for Telex AI to generate a business opening times block. I'm going to say WordPress. Business opening times block. The block should include attributes for alignment, background color, text color, font size. Input fields should provide a title heading, followed by a data matrix covering each day of the week, Monday through to Sunday, with fields for open from and open till until times. The block must use standard theme.json settings for typography, spacing, color, and ensure that visual consistency across different themes. All code should be fully compliant with WordPress coding standards and establish best practices. Again, this probably isn't needed, but I'm going to leave it in anyway. And I'm going to say, keep the details as brief as possible. Now, I can't type, but you get the gist. And I'm only saying that because I don't want it to be so as extensive as the last prompt, but let's see what happens. Okay, so that was a bit quicker than the previous one, so I don't really want to bother with the deliverable format. No, I'm not going to bother with that. I'm going to grab this title right the way down to here. So again, I'm going to copy that out. And I'm going to come back to Telex, and again I'm going to paste that in and then hit build. And again, this is going to think about doing its thing, so I'll come back to this, speed up the video, and we'll come back and check it out. Okay, so that seems to have finished. I'm just going to close that down. So we've got opening times, Monday. Let's have a look at these settings. Title. Say open times. Okay. Now we don't seem to have any settings here. Maybe I've got to click on. Okay, we're going to say 9. Block encountered an error. Okay, so this didn't kind of work. Let's see if we can fix that with AI. So it appears that there's a problem with this one. Okay, seems to be struggling with this one. Let's see if we can fix it again. Okay, so it's had another go. Let's have a look. We'll just put open times in there. Now it appears every time I go and click on the time, it doesn't seem to like it. So okay, it's not doing anything there. So let me see if I can delete that and go 09. Yeah, okay. Now, we know that this is an experimental tool, so it's not going to be perfect. Now, I can probably download this plugin to date and then maybe debug it myself, but it's a starting point. So I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to the next one. So we go back to Telex, and we're going to go and get another prompt. So I'm going to go back to ChatGPT, and this one, keeping things as brief as possible. I want a well-structured prompt for Telex to generate a custom WordPress FAQ accordion block. Each accordion entry should be repeatable and contain two fields, a title and supporting subtext. The blocks must include attributes for alignment, background color, text color, font size, and font styles. It should also provide an option to choose and indicate styles for open close states, allowing the user to select between plus minus symbols or arrow icons, either greater than or downward pointing. Only one accordion panel should be open at any given time. Opening one panel should automatically close the previously opened one, and the block must use standard theme.json styling for typography, spacing, color, maintain visual consistency across different themes. All code should be fully comply with WordPress coding standards and establish best practices for block development. And finally, the block should leverage the WordPress Interactivity API and apply the relevant directives to handle panel toggling and state change efficiently. Okay, so let's see what that does. And again, this may be over elaborate, but let's see what it gives me back. Remembering this is ChatGPT, just polishing my prompt. Okay, that was a lot quicker, and I'm just going to copy that right the way down to the bottom. Let's try that again. Okay, copy. Then we're going to go back to Telex, and again we're going to paste that in and say build. And again, I'll speed up the video and we'll come back shortly. Okay, so that appears to have finished. I'm not sure what it's done, but let's have a look. So we've got a block here, which is called FAQ accordion. Yeah, okay, that's cool. Now, it looks like I've got a... Okay, that didn't work. Let me delete that block. Let's go FAQ accordion. Let's see what happens. So we're going to use plus minus. Yep, that's fine. Let me add another one. Okay, it doesn't appear that I can add. Question. Maybe I've got to open it. I can't seem to click anything. Okay, that's not kind of working as I would expect it to. So we're not getting very far at the moment, are we? So we have alignment settings. Okay, so I can probably vibe code this and say it doesn't appear to have any input for the answer. Answer? Yeah, answer. Okay, so now let's see what we've got. So we've got a sample question, but yet again, I still can't add in an answer, which is a bit frustrating. Question 2, open, close. Okay, so let's see if the plus, minus, and the arrows work. So the arrows work, that's good. That's a good start. Ooh, that's weird. Okay, that seems to have gone a bit haywire. It's gone a weird rotation. Okay, so it was struggling with that. Now maybe I'm asking it to do too much, but we're going to move on to the next one. First, I'm going to download this to see if I can fix it myself, because AI isn't perfect, right? And again, we know that this is an experimental tool, so it's not going to be perfect. But I could probably vibe code this all day or all afternoon But what I'm going to choose to do is to download this to see if I can debug it myself locally. And we'll try and move on to the next one. Okay, so I think what I'll do this time is rather than go into ChatGPT and get it to give me a well-structured prompt, I'm just going to go directly into Telex itself to keep it brief. I think I did read somewhere in the last blog post that it was recommended to just do small steps and iterate on those. So maybe I'm asking it to do too much. I don't know. So I may need to doctor this a little bit. So I want a well-structured prompt for Telex to generate I'm just going to say, generate a custom WordPress timeline highlight block. The block should be laid out vertically and vertical line display along the left-hand side. Each timeline entry should align with the bullet point positioned on the vertical line, with the corresponding content displayed on the right-hand side. Each entry must support repeatable fields, including a title and subtext, and the block should include attributes for alignment, background color, text color, font size, and font styles. Each timeline entry should remain horizontal, aligned with the corresponding bullet point. Additionally, the bullet point should feature a simple scroll-based animation, enlarging when it comes into view and shrinking again when it leaves the viewport. The block must use standard theme.json settings for typography, spacing, and colors to ensure consistency across different themes. All code should be fully compliant with WordPress coding standards and best practices. Now that's fairly brief, I think. Now let's see what that builds. Okay, so we've got a block, timeline block. Now, I did ask for repeatable fields, I do believe, but we may not have that here. So let's look at the block. We've got left alignment. Let's see what center does. Okay, that adds it to the... Okay. We have got color background, text color. Okay, so we got some comprehensive. And we've got time entries. Okay, here's where we add a different time entry. Now I wonder if I can change the... Okay, so that's entry 1. Add your time description here for item 1. Then I'm going to add another entry. Okay, so that adds another one. That's pretty cool. And description 2. Item 2. And now let's just add in another one. Three. Item 3. And let's see what that looks like on the front end. So if I save that, and then I can pop to the front end, preview. Okay, so I probably need to add in some more items to see if this animation works. So if I go back to the editor, let's add in a couple more. I'm just going to bang them in. I'm not really bothered about what the content is. So if we save that, let's go to the front end. Okay, so we don't seem to have any animation, which is probably something I could vibe code and fix. But it's almost there, right? Let's just put that to the right and see what happens when we do that. Okay, we don't get any animation, so okay, but it's a start, so something we can build on. Let's put that to the left. Okay, so I'm going to download that, and that was item 4. So we've got 2 out of 4 working so far, or thereabouts. So let's try the final one, which is, and this may be the easiest, I don't know. Again, I'm going to just take the prompt directly rather than going to ChatGPT, because I think maybe that's just too much. And let's paste that in. So generate a custom WordPress block for a dynamic stat counter. The input fields should include a title and number. When the block scrolls into view, the number should animate from 0 up to the designated value. The block should include attributes for alignment, background color, text color, font size. It must use standard theme.json settings for typography, spacing, color to ensure consistency across themes, and all code should fully comply with WordPress coding standards and best practices. Now let's see what happens. Now there is an enhanced prompt here. Let's see what happens when we do that. I guess that's going to use AI to pretty much do what I was doing, using ChatGPT to give me a prompt that was well structured. So it's gone ahead and created something for me. So create a WordPress block called Animated Counter. Okay, it's changed the title. The title and target number input fields. In the editor, display the final counter value statically with live preview of styling changes on the front end. Animate the number from 0 to the target value using a smooth counter animation when the block enters the viewport. Include controls for text alignment, background color, text color, and font size. Use WordPress theme.json color palette and typography settings. Add padding and margin, spacing controls. Ensure that the block is fully responsive and accessible with the proper area labels. The counter should respect the user's reduced motion preferences and work without JavaScript as a fallback. Okay, so progressive enhancement. Style and title above the animation number with consistent spacing and support for different number formats, including decimal and large numbers with comma separators. Okay, so we've done a different thing here. We've just got the AI to actually enhance my prompt. So let's see what that does. That's actually quite a neat little thing, I guess, because it kind of refines what you're asking it to do. And it'll be interesting to see what the outcome of this one is. Okay, so that one's finished. Now let's see what settings we've got. We do have a title. So I'm going to say, I don't know, downloads. And we're going to put that to, I don't know, 32,000. Let's save that. We don't have any other settings, and we do have our background text settings that we requested. And let's see what that looks like in the front end. Okay, so it animates. That's pretty good. That kind of got us where we wanted to be. Now, the only difference there was that I used the enhanced prompt, which maybe that's the key. I don't know. But we got 3 out of 5. The 2 it failed on were the open times and the FAQs. They didn't quite get us where we wanted to. And I would argue that the timeline wasn't quite right. Now, we could probably play with this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the code and see where we're at with that, just to see what the quality is and delve into it, because we've basically got a starting point. Now, the caveat is basically this is an experimental tool, so it's not going to be perfect. Now, let's take a look at the code. Okay, so we've got a plugin, which is pretty standard stuff, and it all looks like it's all set to coding standards, which is good. I can tell that because we've got a space between braces. What's nice about this is that we do have a package.json file, so we can technically open up a terminal and let's just see what we've got. Print working directory. Okay, we're in the folder. So I'm just going to go ahead and install. I'm going to go npm install. Now what that's going to do basically is it's going to take this package.json file, it's going to look at these scripts and it's going to install all of the dependencies, and then I can run my build process using npm run build. And it's going to take everything in the source folder and it's going to output into the build folder. So I can start manipulating and changing this myself. So basically, Telex has given me a starting point to work from, which is pretty good. So if we go ahead and install that. So if we just check out the edit, we can see that we've got all our imports, so you don't need to worry about that kind of stuff. It's got some functions in there, then we've got the export, edit, and then we've got all our block controls. So to actually write all this would actually take quite a while to debug it and things like that. Although we do have to debug it because it's not perfect for all the blocks we've done, but maybe I'm just asking it to do too much, I don't know. But overall impressions, yeah, I guess 6 out of 10 because A, it's going to save me time and it's going to scaffold stuff for me really quickly. So on that note, we shall conclude. So that's a wrap. Now, Telex is a great tool to get started quickly with custom WordPress block development. Now, does it get it right? No, it doesn't. But it does give you a solid starting point, which is impressive if you don't want to build everything from scratch. Now, is it ideal for non-coders? I would argue no. I don't think so, because you still need some coding knowledge in order to just read the code or fix issues. And in my experience, debugging AI code often takes much longer than it would be to manually build something from scratch. But for developers, it's a really useful tool to speed things up and cut out some of that setup process. So in this demo, I would say I'd give Telex a 6 out of 10. Have I stress tested it enough? Absolutely not. I've used a one-shot prompt, and that is never enough for AI. Now, there's definitely more to explore, and I'm sure it will improve because it's an experimental tool at the moment. But on the surface, I have to say I'm quite impressed. So all credit to Automattic and the team behind this for releasing it. It's a really strong step forward, and it's definitely something I'll be using to streamline my block development. Now, if you've tried Telex before, let me know in the comments below, because I'd love to hear your experiences and if you found it useful. And on that point, if you found this video useful, please do give it a like. And if you're still here and you haven't subscribed, then what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button for more WordPress content like this. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.